Hold on.
We are the audience.
That is the audience.
Alright, so imagine it's late at night and you're sitting in Lover's Lane with your sweetheart and you're enjoying the night together. When, out of the darkness, you see a man coming out towards you. He slowly nears you with a gun and boom, you are the next victim of a serial killer. So, while we all know that serial killers are very creepy, they're pretty fascinating to learn about. So tonight I'll focus on a couple things about the Zodiac Killer. And one is we'll start by seeing how the police decided that he was a serial killer. And two, we'll look at the hunt for the Zodiac Killer. And the last thing is we will talk about the Zodiac's disappearance. So, the first attack happened at Lake Herman Road, where David Faraday and Betty James were both shot and killed on December 2nd, 1968. And then, July 4th, 1968, there was another attack at Blue Rock Springs where Darlene Farron and Mike Mago were shot. So, second point is they also found, after the bodies, they also found letters. They were, one of the first letters that was written by the Zodiac Killer was given to a couple newspapers in the San Francisco area. The San Francisco Examiner, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the Viejo Times Herald. And there was usually a cipher in them, or just talking about the murderers themselves. And another letter came in August 2nd, 1969, where we see that he called himself the Zodiac. So now we're gonna move on to the hunt for the Zodiac Killer. So one of the first witnesses was Mike Mago. His girlfriend was killed, but he survived the attack, and he was able to give a pretty good description. The description that we have here is, thank you, the description that he was able to give the police. And the other person that survived, who was another witness, was Brian Hartnell, and he provided some additional evidence about what he saw the night his girlfriend died and he was attacked. So along with this hunt, there was some contact from him. One of the things he did was he called right after he would kill somebody. He would call the police and he would confess of the murders, and he would tell them where and when it happened. He also wrote letters, and as you can see here are some of the letters that he wrote. He'd write things like this one talks about, or this is the one where he talks a little bit about where we can see that he was the Zodiac. And a little part I'll read from it is this from this one, that if they, it says, I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. And those were common letters that he would write, and taunting the police to try and figure out who he was. And the next part of hunting for him was the uproar for him. Many people during his time of killing, felt pretty unsafe and felt a lot of fear. They were worried that they might be the next one to be killed. And the media also heavily covered any time there was an attack and also any letters they received. So now we'll talk about his disappearance. So on October 11th, 1969, Paul Stein was killed in a neighborhood. He was the last killing of the Zodiac Killer. He also sent letters 5 years or so after his last killing, continuing to taunt the police and trying to figure out who he was and where to find him. He also put one of those letters, he had threatened to blow up a whole bus of school kids. And there were two suspects that they highly suspected for who could be the Zodiac Killer. And one of them is this man right here. His son had told police that he looked very much like the picture. Every time he came up on the news, he would wrote a whole book about how his dad was the Zodiac Killer. So, we talked about the events of how the police were led to find out that he was a killer. We followed their hunt for him, and we looked at his mysterious disappearance. And the story is fascinating, partly because it's scary to think that the police never found this man, and that they don't know who it is. Could it possibly be you? Could it be someone that you know? We don't know. So, the Zodiac Killer killed 7 people and nearly killed 2 in his active years, and then he disappeared. So, in the course of the 7-minute speech, you all learned about a mysterious, well-known serial killer, and nobody knows who he was, just like many of you may not know what your neighbor is up to in the dead of night. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you so much.